Friends, if you want to watch the heart-touching and super-hit movie The Green Mile, 1999, in English, then make sure to like this video. And if you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Facts and Review. Friends, in today's video, the movie we are going to talk about is called The Green Mile. We will cover what this movie is all about and where you can watch it. We'll also share all the amazing and lesser-known facts related to this film. In this video, I'll tell you everything, from which OTT platform or satellite channel you can watch this movie on, to all the details about its technical department, music, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, and box office collection. We'll also discuss the powerful and emotional storyline of this film, and I will give you a short review of the story, its impact, and why it remains unforgettable to this day. Apart from this, we'll talk about the cast, the actors' performances, and which actor played which character. So friends, I request you to watch this video till the very end, because there's a lot to uncover about The Green Mile, a movie that continues to move audiences even after decades. So, let's begin the video. Narrative structure and perspective. The story is presented in a frame narrative, starting in the present day at a nursing home. An elderly Paul Edgecombe, played in the past by Tom Hanks and in the present by Dabs Grier, reflects on his time as a prison guard at Cold Mountain Penitentiary's death row, nicknamed the Green Mile due to its faded green linoleum floor. This retrospective viewpoint sets a non-linear tone, as Paul's memories unfold in flashback form, giving the story a sense of both emotional distance and personal reflection. This choice of perspective provides a layer of introspection, as the audience experiences the past through Paul's eyes, filtered by decades of memory, sorrow, and lingering questions. Beginning, introduction of setting and characters. In the 1930s, Paul Edgecombe supervises the Green Mile, where inmates await execution. The narrative introduces a handful of memorable characters: Brutal Howell, Dean Stanton, and Harry Terwilliger, kind-hearted guards. Percy Wetmore, a cruel, cowardly, and politically connected guard. Edouard Delacroix, a French Cajun inmate with a pet mouse named Mr. Jingles. John Coffey, a towering, mysterious black man convicted of raping and murdering 2 young girls. The story slowly peels back layers of character through small, impactful scenes, prison routines, acts of kindness, and episodes of brutality. These character moments are central to the film's emotional gravity. Middle, supernatural revelation and moral dilemmas. The narrative takes a dramatic turn with the discovery of John Coffey's supernatural healing powers. After healing Paul's painful urinary infection, reviving Mr. Jingles, and later curing the cancer-stricken wife of the prison warden, Coffey's divine nature becomes undeniable. This middle section shifts from realism to spiritual allegory. The guards, particularly Paul, struggle with the knowledge that Coffey is innocent and perhaps something far greater than human. This creates the core moral conflict. Do they allow the execution of a man who embodies purity, sacrifice, and the miraculous? Delacroix's botched execution, caused deliberately by Percy, adds horror and drama, reinforcing the theme of cruelty and the abuse of power. Climax, revelation and tragedy. The emotional and narrative climax occurs when Coffey reveals the truth behind the murders of the 2 girls. He did not kill them, but tried to help them. Through a powerful psychic transfer, Coffey shares his vision with Paul, confirming the identity of the real murderer. Despite knowing the truth, the system offers no recourse. Coffey refuses to escape or fight, weary of the world's cruelty. He expresses a deep sorrow. "I'm tired, boss. Tired of being on the road, lonely as a sparrow in the rain." The execution of Coffey is devastating. The guards, fully aware of his innocence and his saintly nature, must participate in his death, an act that haunts Paul for the rest of his life. Ending, legacy and reflection. Returning to the present, the film's final scenes reveal that Paul, due to Coffey's touch, has aged at an unnaturally slow rate, now over 100 years old. Mr. Jingles still lives too. Paul interprets his long life as both a gift and a punishment, a burden to carry the memory of Coffey and the injustice that was done. This metaphysical ending ties back to the spiritual and moral weight of the film, suggesting that true miracles don't always lead to salvation or justice in the traditional sense. Themes and emotional impact. The story of The Green Mile is deeply spiritual, with strong Christ-like parallels in John Coffey. The themes of injustice, redemption, sacrifice, and the mystery of good versus evil are all explored in subtle and profound ways. The emotional tone is a blend of tragedy, awe, and melancholy. Darabont doesn't rely on action or plot twists, Instead, he builds emotional intensity through character development, moral dilemmas, and symbolic moments. The supernatural elements are treated with reverence rather than spectacle, reinforcing the film's serious moral questions. Conclusion: a timeless narrative. The Green Mile follows a mostly linear plot within its flashback structure, but it's the reflective frame and spiritual themes that elevate it. The story's slow pacing allows for deep character exploration, and every turning point serves a thematic purpose. It's a rare example of a film that balances fantasy and realism to explore human nature at its most vulnerable. The film doesn't just unfold, it lingers, long after the credits roll. Let me know if you'd like a summary version or this in Urdu English word-by-word format for your YouTube channel content. Paul Edgecombe, played by Tom Hanks. The moral compass and the soulful witness. Paul serves as the film's central narrator and moral anchor. Initially introduced as a professional, composed death row supervisor, Paul is a man who follows protocol but carries out his duties with dignity and compassion. As the story progresses, Paul's interactions with John Coffey profoundly challenge his beliefs about justice, humanity, and the limits of the legal system. Growth and transformation. Paul undergoes a subtle but powerful transformation. From being a man of routine and institutional loyalty, he evolves into someone who begins to question the very system he upholds. Coffey's miraculous healing and innocence force Paul into a moral crisis, one that shakes him to his core. By the end, Paul is burdened with the guilt and spiritual weight of what he witnessed, a guilt he carries well into old age. Key relationship. Paul's bond with John Coffey is central to the film. Their growing emotional and spiritual connection turns Paul from a by-the-book warden into a deeply compassionate human being who sees beyond race, size, or social status. Their relationship is one of quiet reverence and deep mutual understanding. 2. John Coffey, played by Clarke Duncan. The innocent giant and symbolic Christ figure. John Coffey is introduced as a towering, simple-minded black man accused of an unspeakable crime. At first glance, he appears terrifying, but this perception is quickly dismantled as the film reveals his gentle soul, childlike innocence, and miraculous healing abilities. He becomes the film's spiritual center. Growth and transformation. While Coffey himself doesn't change much, he remains a symbol of purity and grace. He triggers transformation in those around him. His role is less about personal evolution and more about being the catalyst for the emotional and moral awakening of the other characters, especially Paul. Key relationship. His connection with Paul is poignant and sacred. Coffey is also kind to fellow inmates, especially Edouard Delacroix, and even to those who mistreat him. He represents compassion in its purest form, forgiving a world that has only shown him cruelty. 3. Edouard Delacroix, played by Michael Jeter. The tragic soul with a gentle heart. Delacroix, a French Cajun inmate, arrives with a troubled past but quickly reveals a more tender side. His friendship with a small mouse, Mr. Jingles, becomes a touching subplot that humanizes him and endears him to both the guards and the audience. Growth and transformation. Delacroix transforms from a condemned criminal into a man who seeks peace, affection, and meaning in his final days. His redemption arc is subtle, built on small acts of kindness and his deep love for Mr. Jingles. His tragic execution, botched by Percy, becomes a turning point in the film, intensifying the emotional stakes and moral complexity. Key relationship. His relationship with the mouse symbolizes his desire to care for something pure and innocent, perhaps as a way to find forgiveness for his past. His interactions with the guards, particularly Brutal and Paul, shift from mistrust to mutual respect. 4. Percy Wetmore, played by Doug Hutchison. The embodiment of cruelty and cowardice. Percy is a sadistic, arrogant guard who abuses his authority and takes pleasure in others' suffering. He is the only main character who does not evolve. Rather, his arc illustrates the consequences of unchecked power and inherited privilege. Growth and transformation. There is no redemption for Percy. His behavior worsens over time, culminating in the deliberate sabotage of Delacroix's execution. Eventually, Coffey uses his psychic powers to give Percy a taste of his own medicine, leading to his mental breakdown. Key relationship. His interactions with everyone are marked by conflict. He is universally disliked and mistrusted, and his presence serves as a sharp contrast to the more empathetic guards. His downfall provides a form of poetic justice within the story. 5. Brutus Brutal Howell, played by David Morse. The gentle giant behind the badge. Despite his nickname, Brutal is one of the kindest and most level-headed guards on the Green Mile. Loyal, empathetic, and courageous, he acts as Paul's right hand and is deeply impacted by Coffey's presence. Growth and transformation. Brutal grows more emotionally open and introspective. Like Paul, he wrestles with the injustice of Coffey's sentence. His emotional breakdown during the execution scene highlights his inner turmoil and the moral cost of their profession. Key relationship. He shares a quiet but solid bond with Paul and the other guards. His respect for Coffey reflects his deep sense of fairness and humanity. 6. Mr. Jingles, the mouse. The symbol of innocence and miracles. While not a human character, Mr. Jingles plays a symbolic role in the narrative. He represents innocence, magic, and the possibility of redemption even in the darkest places. Growth and transformation. The mouse survives the Green Mile, miraculously living for decades, thanks to Coffey's powers. Mr. Jingles becomes a symbol of hope and continuity, a silent witness to the events of the past. 7. Warden Hal Morse and Melinda Morse. The Morse couple, especially Melinda, serve to humanize the suffering outside the prison walls. When John Coffey heals Melinda from a fatal brain tumor, it underscores his divinity and the broader reach of his compassion. Key relationship. The Morse inclusion reinforces the idea that death and suffering are not confined to the prison. They also push Paul further along his emotional journey, especially after witnessing Coffey's miracle firsthand. Conclusion. A study in human complexity. The Green Mile is a masterclass in character-driven storytelling. The characters are not just tools for the plot, they are the plot. Their internal conflicts, relationships, and moral decisions shape every major event in the film. The movie asks difficult questions about good and evil, innocence and guilt, and whether systems built for justice can ever truly deliver it. In the end, the emotional power of the film doesn't come from its supernatural elements, but from its deeply human characters, flawed, broken, beautiful, and unforgettable. Let me know if you'd like a shorter summary version, a scripted voiceover, or a translated Urdu-English style version for your YouTube channel Facts and Review. Paul Edgecombe, the witness to miracles and moral awakening. Portrayed by Tom Hanks. Paul is not just a narrator, he is the emotional lens through which the audience experiences the events of the Green Mile. At the start, Paul is a disciplined, duty-bound prison officer who believes in the justice system, even if it means executing the condemned. However, his view of life, death, and justice is shaken when he meets John Coffey. Seedling psychological growth. Begins as a man of principle who does the job without questioning the deeper morality of executions. Suffers from a painful urinary infection, symbolic of his own inner suffering and emotional repression. When healed by Coffey, Paul not only recovers physically, but begins a spiritual journey. His hardened belief in the system gives way to human-centered morality. His emotional trauma deepens as he's forced to execute a man he knows is innocent, triggering guilt that stays with him into old age. Symbolic role. Paul becomes a modern-day Pontius Pilate, compelled by the system to allow the death of someone who may be divine. His character arc reflects the burden of truth and the cost of choosing duty over justice. John Coffey, the embodiment of innocence and divine suffering. Portrayed by Clarke Duncan. Coffey, whose initials are JC, a clear reference to Jesus Christ, is the soul of the story. A towering black man accused of a heinous crime, Coffey subverts every stereotype with his gentle demeanor, soft voice, and supernatural healing powers. Seedling complex character traits. He is mentally childlike, emotionally sensitive, and deeply spiritual. Despite his massive physicality, he is afraid of the dark and of human cruelty. His healing powers, curing Paul, reviving the mouse, and healing Melinda, show that he is a Christ-like figure, suffering for the sins of others. Broken heart emotional journey. Coffey does not undergo traditional development. Instead, he transforms those around him. He accepts his fate not out of weakness, but because he is tired of feeling the pain of the world. His death becomes a spiritual sacrifice, much like a religious martyrdom. Symbolic significance. Coffey's execution represents society's fear of the extraordinary and its tendency to destroy what it does not understand. His character critiques racism, systemic injustice, and humanity's failure to recognize miracles in plain sight. Brutal Howell, the kind-hearted enforcer. Portrayed by David Morse. Brutal is Paul's closest colleague and trusted friend. Despite his intimidating nickname and stature, he's one of the most compassionate and sensitive characters. Seedling psychological depth. A loyal officer who values fairness, respect, and dignity for all, even condemned men. Suffers emotionally when forced to take part in executions, especially Coffey's. Breaks down during John's final moments, showing the emotional toll of state-sanctioned violence. Handshake key contributions. Provides emotional stability for the group. Represents the duality of man, someone capable of force but choosing mercy. Edouard Delacroix, the redeemed criminal. Portrayed by Michael Jeter. Delacroix is a deeply flawed yet tragically sympathetic figure. Sentenced for a brutal crime, he transforms in prison through kindness, friendship, and vulnerability. Seedling redemption arc. Develops a bond with Mr. Jingles, symbolizing his search for innocence and love. Is deeply respectful and grateful for the compassion shown to him by the guards. Faces his execution with courage and dignity, but is horrifically betrayed by Percy, highlighting the cruelty of the justice system. Mouseface symbolism of Mr. Jingles. The mouse represents innocence, forgiveness, and the spark of life. Their friendship humanizes Dell, showing his more than his crime. Percy Wetmore, the face of institutional sadism. Portrayed by Doug Hutchison. Percy is not just a villain. He is the embodiment of systemic cruelty, enabled by politics, privilege, and a lack of accountability. Seedling flat arc with purpose. Percy doesn't grow or change. His stagnation is intentional. Serves to show how evil can thrive within bureaucracy when unchecked. His sadism climaxes when he intentionally causes Delacroix to suffer during his execution, an act that marks his moral collapse. Counterclockwise arrows poetic justice. Percy is punished when Coffee psychically transfers the pain and memories of a murderer into him, reducing him to silence and madness. Symbolizes karmic retribution, but the damage he caused is irreversible. Warden Hal Morse and Melinda Morse, humanity outside the prison walls. Portrayed by James Cromwell and Patricia Clarkson. They offer a view into the world beyond the Green Mile, showing that suffering and injustice aren't limited to prisoners. Seedling role in the story. Melinda's miraculous healing by coffee convinces the Morse of his divinity. Their inclusion highlights the film's theme of faith, redemption, and the limits of medicine versus miracles. Mr. Jingles, the immortal witness. Portrayed by a trained mouse. Though non-verbal, Mr. Jingles is a potent character symbol. Mouse face symbolic meaning. Represents purity, resilience, and the power of small miracles. His longevity, still alive decades later, mirrors Paul's extended life. Both are reminders of John Coffey's gift and burden. Old Paul Edgecombe, the burden of memory. Portrayed by Dabbs Greer. The present-day Paul is haunted by the events on the Green Mile. Though he has lived an unnaturally long life, it is not a blessing. It is a punishment for participating in Coffey's execution. Seedling final reflection. Questions God's purpose. Why was he chosen to live so long? Feels that his life has become a penance, a slow, quiet atonement for letting a miracle die. End with left arrow above final thoughts. Characters as the heart of the film. Every character in the Green Mile is crafted with careful depth and emotional authenticity. From the smallest mouse to the tallest inmate, each figure contributes to a larger exploration of what it means to be human, moral, flawed, and redeemable. Rather than pushing action, the characters carry the entire emotional weight of the film. Their development shapes the film's pacing, moral questions, and unforgettable ending. Without these nuanced performances and arcs, The Green Mile would be just another prison drama. With them, it becomes a timeless spiritual epic. Would you like a short version for video narration, or a visual breakdown, e.g., for YouTube slides? I can also help write Tom Hanks as Paul Edgecombe, the anchor of humanity. Tom Hanks delivers a deeply restrained yet emotionally potent performance as Paul Edgecombe, the death row supervisor and the film's central narrator. Hanks is known for portraying morally upright, introspective characters, and in The Green Mile, he takes this persona to its most reflective and quietly tormented form. Left-pointing magnifying glass performance highlights. His internal conflict is conveyed through subtle expressions, slight facial tics, weary eyes, and hesitant speech that show the heavy burden Paul carries. Hanks's chemistry with Michael Clarke Duncan, John Coffey, is essential. Their dynamic evolves from wary supervisor-inmate to deeply spiritual companionship. In key moments, such as when Paul receives Coffey's healing, or during Coffey's execution, Hanks masterfully portrays silent heartbreak, conveying oceans of emotion with minimal dialogue. Medium white star verdict. Hanks's performance is the emotional spine of the film. His steadiness grounds the story, giving viewers a compassionate guide through an increasingly surreal and painful moral journey. Performing arts. Michael Clarke Duncan as John Coffey, the soul of the film. Michael Clarke Duncan's portrayal of John Coffey is widely regarded as career-defining, and for good reason. In his breakthrough role, Duncan brings to life a character that is both physically imposing and spiritually gentle, delivering one of the most emotionally resonant performances in modern cinema. Left-pointing magnifying glass performance highlights. Duncan conveys Coffey's innocence and sensitivity with heartbreaking clarity. His soft voice, tearful eyes, and trembling hands contrast hauntingly with his enormous frame. His line delivery, especially moments like "I'm tired, boss. Tired of all the pain I feel and hear in the world," is filled with soul, making the character unforgettable. His ability to portray vulnerability, such as Coffey's fear of the dark or his gentle interactions with the mouse, adds layers of depth that elevate the role far beyond stereotype. Medium white star verdict. Michael Clarke Duncan's performance is nothing short of transformative. He balances strength and sorrow, divine presence and childlike fear, creating a performance that feels eternal. He earned an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor, and many believe it should have been a win. Performing arts. Doug Hutchison as Percy Wetmore, vile and unforgettable. Doug Hutchison's chilling portrayal of Percy Wetmore is a textbook example of an effective antagonist. As the sadistic, power-abusing prison guard, Hutchison creates a character audiences love to hate. Left-pointing magnifying glass performance highlights. Hutchison infuses Percy with cowardice, cruelty, and entitlement, creating a character that's both loathsome and psychologically believable. His sneering tone, erratic behavior, and smarmy confidence make Percy feel dangerously unpredictable, heightening tension in every scene. In scenes like the botched execution of Delacroix, Hutchison's dead-eyed pleasure in cruelty is profoundly disturbing and emotionally destabilizing for the viewer. Medium white star verdict. Percy could have been a one-dimensional villain, but Hutchison's committed performance gives him a grotesque realism that lingers long after the film ends. Performing arts. David Morse as Brutus. Brutal howl, strength and softness. David Morse plays brutal with quiet dignity, perfectly capturing the dichotomy of a man capable of enforcing death row discipline while maintaining empathy and honor. Left-pointing magnifying glass performance highlights. Morse's performance is rooted in nonverbal emotion, a steady gaze, a sorrowful nod, or a clenched jaw in the execution room. His emotional collapse during Coffey's execution is one of the film's most devastating moments, a large man reduced to tears, symbolic of the emotional cost of institutional violence. His scenes with Paul Edgecombe show true camaraderie and shared moral burden. Medium white star verdict. Morse delivers a performance that is sincere, solid, and deeply human, offering essential emotional balance to the prison guards ensemble. Performing arts. Michael Jeter as Edouard Delacroix, fragile and tragic. Michael Jeter's portrayal of Delacroix is tender, tragic, and deeply moving. As a condemned man who finds fleeting peace through his pet mouse, Jeter humanizes a figure often dismissed by society. Left-pointing magnifying glass performance highlights. Jeter's mix of timidity and warmth creates a layered character who evokes both guilt and sympathy. His interactions with Mr. Jingles feel authentic and emotionally grounded, offering some of the film's most bittersweet moments. During his execution scene, Jeter's terror is gut-wrenchingly real, making it one of the most emotionally traumatic sequences in the film. Medium white star verdict. Jeter brings dignity and emotional complexity to a doomed character, reminding viewers of the human cost of capital punishment. Performing arts. James Cromwell and Patricia Clarkson as Hal and Melinda Morse. As the prison warden and his gravely ill wife, Cromwell and Clarkson bring gravitas and warmth to their supporting roles. Performance highlights. Cromwell projects both authority and vulnerability, especially when pleading for Coffey's help to cure his wife. Clarkson's portrayal of Melinda, post-healing, is radiant and ethereal, amplifying the film's spiritual undercurrents. Medium white star verdict. Both deliver understated, effective performances that deepen the film's themes of healing, gratitude, and miracle. Performing arts. Dabbs Greer as Old Paul Edgecombe, the aging conscience. As the elderly version of Paul, Dabbs Greer beautifully captures the haunted reminiscence of a man who has lived too long with a guilt too heavy. Left-pointing magnifying glass performance highlights. His narration is gentle and sorrowful, adding a layer of emotional intimacy. The scenes where he reflects on his longevity and Coffey's death are quietly devastating. Medium white star verdict. Greer's performance bridges past and present, enhancing the film's tragic sense of timeless grief. End with left arrow above conclusion, a performance-driven masterpiece. In The Green Mile, every actor, from the lead to the supporting cast, contributes to the film's incredible emotional weight. There are no weak performances. The ensemble cast turns a supernatural prison drama into an emotional epic about the human soul. The synergy between characters, their nuanced portrayals, and the rich emotional subtleties in each performance make The Green Mile one of the most powerful acted films of its era. Let me know if you'd like this section adapted into a YouTube voiceover script, a slide-based breakdown, or translated into Urdu-English hybrid style for your Facts and Review channel. The Green Mile, 1999 performances, in exhaustive detail. Director Frank Darabont assembled a powerhouse ensemble for The Green Mile, and each actor, regardless of screen time, brought profound authenticity and emotional weight. The performances are central to why this film remains timeless and universally impactful. Large Orange Diamond Tom Hanks as Paul Edgecombe, the quiet moral core. Glowing star acting technique. Hanks uses micro-expressions and voice modulation to embody a man in emotional turmoil. His performance is a masterclass in understated acting. During execution scenes, he maintains composure, but his body language, tight shoulders, clenched jaw, hesitant breathing, reveals the torment beneath the surface. Fire key scenes. Coffey's healing of Paul's urinary infection. Hanks's shift from physical agony to stunned realization is portrayed with a slow, awestruck facial transition, showing disbelief and sacred awe. John Coffey's execution, Paul's trembling voice, filled with guilt and reverence, shows that this moment breaks something in him permanently. Hanks captures a man doing his duty with a shattered soul. Speech balloon notable traits. Balances authority and vulnerability. His calm, empathetic leadership contrasts with the violence of the prison system. Narrates with emotional gravitas in the elderly Paul scenes, giving weight to memory and guilt. Trophy contribution. Tom Hanks's performance acts like emotional glue, holding together the moral and spiritual tone of the film. Without him, the film's surreal and supernatural elements would feel detached from human reality. Large Orange Diamond Michael Clarke Duncan as John Coffey, the sacred innocent. Glowing star acting technique. Duncan blends physical acting with profound emotional innocence. Despite his intimidating frame, he uses soft speech, watery eyes, and almost childlike expressions. His ability to express pain without words, especially during psychic healing sequences, is unforgettable. Fire key scenes. Healing Melinda Morse, Duncan breathes heavily, convulses, and then releases the sickness in an animalistic burst. His suffering is palpable, and his posture afterward shows emotional and physical exhaustion. Coffey's final words, the fear and resignation in his voice, his request to not put the mask on, shows a vulnerable, deeply human moment before death. It echoes a Christ-like sacrifice. Speech balloon notable traits. Coffey never uses power for anger or revenge, showing divine-level compassion. Duncan never overacts. His silence is as powerful as his speech. Trophy contribution. Michael Clarke Duncan's performance is transcendent. It adds spiritual depth to the film and transforms the story from a prison drama into a moral fable. His Oscar-nominated role is considered one of the best of the decade. Large Orange Diamond Doug Hutchison as Percy Wetmore, the rotten core of power. Glowing star acting technique. Hutchison uses facial sneers, erratic eye movements, and rigid posture to evoke Percy's pettiness and instability. His performance is theatrical, but controlled, never cartoonish, always frighteningly real. Fire key scenes. Delacroix's execution. His refusal to wet the sponge and the smirk as the flames engulf Del shows his deliberate sadism. His breakdown after Coffey's psychic punishment. Hutchison transforms Percy into a mumbling shell of a man, using dead eyes and slack limbs to show total mental collapse. Speech balloon notable traits. His obsession with status and cruelty adds tension to every scene he enters. Represents systemic evil and entitlement unchecked by accountability. Trophy contribution. Hutchison elevates Percy from a standard villain to a manifestation of institutional cruelty, making every scene his in feel volatile and dangerous. Large Orange Diamond David Morse as Brutus Brutal Howell, strength tempered by compassion. Glowing star acting technique. Morse plays brutal with a mix of stoicism and moral conflict. He underplays his emotions, making his breakdowns all the more powerful. Uses pauses and eye contact effectively to express compassion without words. Fire key scenes. Delacroix's execution aftermath. Brutal's barrel-contained rage shows how affected he is by Percy's cruelty. Final moments with Coffey. Brutal's trembling voice and welled-up eyes show his reluctance, pain, and helplessness. Speech balloon notable traits. He's the moral barometer among the guards, often mediating between Paul and Percy. Shows that masculinity can be gentle, just, and nurturing. Trophy contribution. Morse's character adds emotional stability to the film. His performance reflects the cost of silent moral complicity, helping the audience understand the weight of each execution. Michael Jeter as Edouard Delacroix, the damaged, redeemed soul. Glowing star acting technique. Jeter's emotional range spans from jittery nervousness to serene tenderness. Uses physical tremors, a fragile voice, and unpredictable eye movement to portray Del as a man caught between fear and forgiveness. Fire key scenes. Bonding with Mr. Jingles shows his capacity for love and vulnerability. Botched execution. Jeter's agonized screams are visceral and horrific, cementing this as one of the most traumatic executions in film history. Speech balloon notable traits. Del's change in demeanor over time feels natural and earned. His laughter, accent, and quirky charm provide brief moments of levity in an otherwise dark tale. Trophy contribution. Jeter gives the audience a reason to empathize with the condemned, challenging the black and white perception of crime and punishment. Large orange diamond James Cromwell and Patricia Clarkson, poised in tragedy. Glowing star acting technique. Cromwell portrays Hal with dignified authority and sorrow. His performance is one of emotional humility, especially as he begs for help to save his wife. Clarkson as Melinda exudes fragility and grace, transitioning from disoriented illness to radiant lucidity post-healing. Fire key scenes. Hal kneeling beside Coffee shows reverence and awe for a miracle. Melinda calling John an angel, delivered with a soft, teary-eyed conviction that affirms the film's spiritual undercurrents. Trophy contribution. Their performances support the moral and spiritual themes, reminding viewers that miracles, love, and fear aren't confined to prison walls. Large orange diamond dabs Greer as old Paul Edgecombe, the conscience of a lifetime. Glowing star acting technique. Greer's narration is gentle and deeply melancholic, setting a nostalgic tone. His facial expressions reflect a man haunted by the past, especially in the scenes at the retirement home. Fire key scene. Paul confessing the truth about Coffee. Greer's quiet grief is devastating, representing a lifetime of unspoken sorrow. Trophy contribution. Greer bridges the story's timelines, making the Green Mile a reflection on memory, aging, and regret. Large orange diamond supporting standouts. Sam Rockwell as Wild Bill Wharton, wild, chaotic, and terrifying. His erratic energy gives the film its most volatile scenes. Harry Dean Stanton as Toot Toot, small role, but memorable and authentic in execution sequences. Mr. Jingles, the mouse, trained to perfection, adds whimsy, innocence, and symbolic immortality. Final verdict, a perfect ensemble. Each actor in the Green Mile contributes with precision, emotional intelligence, and a deep respect for the story's moral complexity. Their combined efforts elevate the film to something greater than genre or plot. They make it a spiritual experience. Without the performances, The Green Mile might have just been a good story. With them, it became a masterpiece of emotional and moral storytelling. Would you like this converted into a voiceover script or YouTube-style narration with chapters? I can also format it into bilingual, Urdu plus English, content for your facts and review audience. Director, Frank Darabont. After his monumental success with The Shawshank Redemption, 1994, Frank Darabont returned to the world of Stephen King adaptations with The Green Mile, bringing with him a distinct visual, emotional, and narrative sensibility. His direction is the beating heart of the film, shaping every aspect, from performance to pacing, from mood to message, with a deliberate, compassionate hand. Darabont doesn't merely tell a story. He orchestrates an emotional experience that stays with the viewer long after the credits roll. Film #1. Tone and mood, a spiritual, somber elegy. Darabont crafts The Green Mile with a tone that is reverent, meditative, and emotionally haunting. While the film is set in a prison and includes moments of extreme violence and cruelty, it never becomes gritty or exploitative. Instead, Darabont infuses the environment with a deep spiritual melancholy. Atmosphere of grace and guilt. The mood of the film is suspended between themes of divine justice and human fallibility. Darabont allows long silences, lingering glances, and quiet conversations to soak the narrative in moral reflection. Empathy above all. Darabont's directing philosophy seems built on compassionate observation. Whether it's the small kindnesses between guards or the tenderness with which Coffee handles Mr. Jingles, the tone always leans toward hope and humanity, even in moments of death. 2. Storytelling vision, faithful and expansive. Darabont adapted the film from Stephen King's serialized novel, staying largely faithful to the source material. Yet his direction adds cinematic poetry and depth that literature alone cannot provide. Non-linear framing device. The story is told through the eyes of an elderly Paul Edgecombe, whose flashback-driven narrative adds emotional weight and reflection. Darabont uses the older Paul, played by Dabs Grier, not just as a narrator but as a symbol of time's burden, showing how trauma and conscience echo through decades. Thematic layering. Darabont's storytelling gently weaves themes of suffering, redemption, racial injustice, innocence, miracles, and mortality, ensuring that no idea feels forced or didactic. Every story thread adds to a bigger tapestry of moral exploration. Magical realism. Despite the supernatural elements, Coffey's healing powers, psychic visions, Darabont grounds these moments in emotional reality. They are never treated as spectacle but as sacred, mysterious interventions, enhancing the film's spiritual tone. Movie Camera 3. Shot composition and visual style. Stillness over sensation. Darabont and cinematographer David Tattersall avoid flashy or frenetic camera work. Instead, the film's look is defined by measured pacing, classical composition, and warm, naturalistic lighting. Long takes and wide frames. Many key emotional scenes unfold in wide shots or slow dolly movements. This allows actors room to breathe and emphasizes the claustrophobic layout of the prison block, nicknamed the Green Mile. Symmetry and framing. Coffey is often shot center frame, emphasizing his Christ-like presence. Execution scenes use low angles and somber lighting to evoke dread and solemnity. Lighting. The mile is lit in soft amber tones, giving even the death row an unsettling warmth. In contrast, supernatural moments are bathed in greenish glows or starker whites, visually separating the natural and mystical. Stopwatch #4. Pacing. Patient, purposeful, poetic. At over 3 hours long, the film defies modern expectations of brisk editing or fast-moving plots. Yet Darabont uses the extended runtime to let emotion marinate. Slow burn development. Every character is introduced with care. Their relationships evolve naturally, especially between Paul, Coffey, and the other guards. This slow build pays off in deep emotional investment during the film's final hour. Execution scenes. These sequences are ritualistic in pacing, building tension through deliberate preparations, wetting the sponge, saying last words. This methodical approach underscores the inhuman repetition of institutional killing, adding philosophical weight. Flashbacks and present-day cuts. The older Paul's reflections are sparse but effective, placed at emotional peaks to punctuate key moments and show the emotional toll over time. 5. Direction of performances, masterful guidance. Darabont extracts career-best performances from nearly every cast member. His background as a screenwriter allows him to guide actors through subtle emotional arcs, especially in ensemble settings. Emotionally layered acting. Darabont encourages restraint. He avoids melodrama, pushing actors to internalize conflict, particularly Tom Hanks's quietly agonized Paul and Michael Clarke Duncan's soulful Coffey. Villains with realism. Doug Hutchison's Percy and Sam Rockwell's Wild Bill are despicable but never cartoonish. Their performances balance menace with unpredictability, a result of precise directorial framing and tempo control. Group chemistry. The camaraderie among the guards feels natural and earned. Darabont builds their relationships with silent glances, shared meals, and casual dialogue, creating a believable emotional support system. Crystal Ball 6. Symbolism and vision, a director's moral compass. Frank Darabont doesn't just tell a story, he asks questions. What is justice? Can a man be redeemed? Do miracles have a place in modern institutions? Through characters, mise-en-scene, and tone, Darabont elevates the Green Mile to a philosophical meditation. He uses visual metaphors like Mr. Jingles, innocence that survives execution, Coffey's mouth exhaling darkness, sin or pain absorbed, and Paul's long life, a cursed reward for witnessing a miracle, to deepen the film's resonance. Checkered flag final verdict. Frank Darabont's direction is precise, poetic, and profound. His greatest strength lies in his ability to balance intimacy and grandeur, morality and mysticism, realism and metaphor. Through deliberate pacing, richly composed visuals, and emotionally honest performances, he transforms the Green Mile from a supernatural prison drama into a spiritual journey about life, death, and the burden of the human soul. Gold Military Medal # It's not just storytelling. It's moral filmmaking, crafted with the patience of a poet and the soul of a believer. Let me know if you'd like this written in the format of a YouTube video voiceover, or if you want it translated adapted for your facts and review channel. The Green Mile, 1999. Cinematography analysis. Cinematographer, David Tattersall. Director, Frank Darabont. In The Green Mile, David Tattersalls' cinematography is not just a visual complement to the story. It becomes an integral part of its emotional and moral landscape. Through careful lighting, deliberate framing, and thoughtful camera movement, the film creates a visual grammar that is at once haunting, spiritual, claustrophobic, and compassionate. Full Moon Symbol 1. Lighting, warmth, contrast, and supernatural ambience. Amber and earthy tones, humanizing the prison. The film is set almost entirely within Cold Mountain Penitentiary, specifically on E Block, Death Row. Yet, Tattersall resists using cold or harsh lighting. Instead, he uses warm, golden tones, often resembling candlelight or afternoon sunlight, to imbue the prison with a strangely sacred, even comforting, aura. This golden glow softens the brutality of the setting, reinforcing the film's theme that even in a place of death, humanity and miracles can exist. Green and pale light, signaling the supernatural. The film subtly plays with color to mark mystical or miraculous moments. John Coffey's healing scenes are frequently lit with ethereal, pale green or white light, differentiating the natural world from the divine. These moments stand out visually, making the viewer feel they are witnessing something unexplainable but holy. Medium black circles see a harsh lighting in execution scenes. During executions, especially the botched one of Delacroix, lighting becomes more clinical and threatening. Overhead lights cast sharp shadows, intensifying the horror. The burning of Dell is shown in flickering firelight and rising smoke, enhancing the scene's graphic, almost hellish visual texture. Clapperboard 2. Camera angles, power, emotion and vulnerability. Tattersall and Darabont use camera angles not just for coverage, but for thematic emphasis. Up-pointing small red triangle low angles for Coffey, a gentle giant's presence. Coffey is often filmed from slightly lower angles or center-framed, especially when using his powers. This doesn't make him look threatening. Instead, it creates a subtle reverence, suggesting spiritual or mythic power. Down-pointing small red triangle high angles for victims and the vulnerable. When Percy is punished psychically, or during Dell's panic, high angles are used to show helplessness and vulnerability. The use of overhead shots in executions reinforces how small and insignificant the condemned appear within the ritual of state-sanctioned death. Performing arts see close-ups and eye-level shots for intimacy. When Paul and his team converse, especially in scenes of empathy or crisis, the camera stays at eye level, often in tight close-up or medium shots. This creates emotional immediacy, allowing the audience to connect with every twitch, sigh, and flicker of conscience. Framed picture #3. Framing and composition, balance, symbolism, and control. Tattersall often frames scenes with deliberate symmetry, evoking both control and spiritual weight. Chains #A symmetry in the mile. The prison corridor, the Green Mile, is long and symmetrical. Tattersall frequently uses it in center-framed shots with strong vertical lines. This creates a sense of ritual and inevitability, as if every character walking it is on a preordained path toward death or revelation. Mouse face Mr. Jingles, shifting perspective. The mouse, Mr. Jingles, is often framed low to the ground or in dynamic tracking shots. This not only adds visual variety but symbolizes innocence, wonder, and fragility in a setting meant for despair. Skull see isolated framing in executions. Before executions, condemned characters are frequently shown in isolation, either by framing them alone or through barriers, window slots, shadows, vertical bars. This enhances the sense of emotional and existential separation between the living and the soon-to-die. Stopwatch #4. Camera movement, slow, purposeful, and reflective. Tattersall resists fast or jarring movement. His camera style reflects the film's philosophical pacing and emotional gravity. Movie camera dolly and tracking shots, walking the mile. Many scenes use slow dolly ins to heighten tension, especially when entering Coffey's cell or when Paul walks toward the electric chair. The last walk scenes feature long tracking shots, mirroring the condemned's emotional journey and giving weight to every step. Ferris wheel stillness in quiet moments. When characters engage in deep conversations, especially those involving morality, belief, or trauma, the camera is still and observant. This stillness contrasts with the supernatural chaos, emphasizing the peace within human connection. Film #5. Visually striking moments. Several scenes stand out as cinematic showpieces not for their visual grandeur, but for their emotional resonance through visual design. Shooting Star A. The Healing of Melinda Morse. Coffey's touch emits a faint glowing aura. As he absorbs her sickness, The lighting shifts to brighter whites, and the camera pushes in slowly to reveal her facial transformation, from deathly pale to radiant. It's filmed like a resurrection, with natural lighting that suggests the divine in everyday light. Fire B. Delacroix's execution. Perhaps the film's most visually horrifying scene. The sponge is left dry, and when the current is turned on, Tattersall uses strobe-like flickers of firelight, mixed with smoke and silhouette, to show a man burning alive. The audience sees it from both the spiritual and the bureaucratic lens, as Darabont intercuts between horrified witnesses and cold observers. Mouseface C. The Mouse's death and rebirth. The lighting dims as Wild Bill kills Mr. Jingles, and when Coffee revives him, the room is momentarily lit with a ghostly shimmer, again signaling life restored in a world obsessed with death. Milky Way 6. Atmosphere and symbolism. Tattersall doesn't just frame beautiful pictures. He uses cinematography to underscore the film's themes. Faith versus punishment. The contrast in lighting between Coffee's miracles and the mechanical brutality of the electric chair enhances the spiritual divide. Isolation versus connection. Characters framed alone or in harsh light are often morally failing or spiritually broken. Those bathed in warmth or light are often agents of kindness, redemption, or empathy. The endless walk. Repeated shots down the corridor with deep focus make the Green Mile feel eternal and inescapable, a metaphor for life's inevitable path to death. Whiteheaver checkmark final verdict. David Tattersall's cinematography in The Green Mile is masterfully understated, visually poetic, and emotionally precise. His use of light, color, framing, and movement turns a simple prison corridor into a sacred place of moral reckoning and mystical wonder. The visuals never distract. They serve the soul of the story, deepening its spiritual and emotional impact. Gold military medal # The Green Mile isn't just told. It's painted in shadows and light, in grief and grace. Would you like this transformed into a YouTube voiceover script, or adapted with Urdu English bilingual narration for your Facts and Review channel? Edited by Richard Francis Bruce. In The Green Mile, editing plays a subtle but essential role in shaping the film's emotional rhythm and narrative structure. Editor Richard Francis Bruce, known for his work on The Shawshank Redemption, collaborates once again with director Frank Darabont to deliver a film that flows with elegant restraint, emotional precision, and thematic clarity. The result is a long yet deeply engaging story that rewards patience and emotional attentiveness. Stopwatch #1. Overall pacing. Deliberate, meditative, and emotionally grounded. The Green Mile runs for approximately 189 minutes, over 3 hours, a length that may seem excessive for some audiences. Yet the film maintains a careful balance between narrative development, emotional investment, and atmospheric immersion. Purposeful slowness. The film doesn't rush its plot. It invites viewers to sit with the characters, understand their moral dilemmas, and absorb the prison environment. The pacing reflects the slow passage of time on death row, where each day is predictable, yet fraught with quiet tension. No wasted time. Although long, the film is not indulgent. Every scene either deepens character development, e.g., Paul and his wife's bond, Delacroix's friendship with Mr. Jingles, builds thematic resonance, e.g., the debate about miracles and justice, or contributes to plot progression. Emotional crescendos. The slow pacing pays off in emotionally charged scenes, executions, Coffee's miracles, the final goodbye, because the viewer has been given time to bond with the characters and understand their world. Black Scissors #2. Editing style, classical, invisible, and emotionally intuitive. Francis Bruce uses an invisible editing style, where cuts are rarely flashy or attention-grabbing. The film's editing respects the traditional narrative structure, relying on long takes, smooth transitions, and rhythmic dialogue pacing. Continuity editing. Transitions between scenes are fluid and coherent. Whether the film moves from one day to another or shifts between flashbacks and present-day narration, there is always a clear sense of time and space. Long takes and holding shots. The editor often allows scenes to breathe. Dialogue scenes, for example, are rarely overcut. The camera lingers on characters during emotionally powerful moments, like Paul's breakdown in the nursing home or Coffee's final conversation, letting the audience absorb the emotional gravity. Minimal use of cross-cutting. Cross-cutting is reserved for heightened moments, such as when Percy sabotages Dell's execution, or when Paul receives the vision of Wild Bill's crime. These sequences increase narrative tension without compromising the film's overall reflective tone. Film #3. Flashbacks and narrative framing, seamless integration. The Green Mile is framed by scenes of an elderly Paul Edgecombe recounting his memories in a nursing home. This structure provides an emotional bookend to the story and allows the editing to shift between present and past without disorienting the viewer. Smooth flashback transitions. The transitions into flashback are emotionally driven, often prompted by a story, object, or emotional reaction. The use of music and visual fades ensures that the viewer understands they are stepping into memory. Reflections of time. The framing device also allows the editor to explore themes of memory, guilt, and aging, creating a melancholic tone that permeates both timelines. The contrast between the old Paul and his younger self adds emotional weight and narrative complexity. Cyclone 4. Rhythm and emotional control. Editing in The Green Mile is not just about pacing. It's about controlling the emotional tempo of the film. Build up to executions. The editor uses a slow, ritualistic rhythm in execution scenes. Shots of the condemned man preparing, guards walking in formation, and Paul giving orders are cut in a measured, almost sacred sequence, building a sense of dread and inevitability. Supernatural moments. When Coffey performs a miracle, editing slows down. The sequences are edited with gentle cuts and breathing room, emphasizing the wonder and mystery of his abilities. Contrast and tension. The film balances quiet scenes of reflection with sudden bursts of tension, e.g., Wild Bill's attacks, Perce's breakdown. These sudden rhythm shifts are impactful precisely because the editing elsewhere is so controlled and steady. 5. Editing as thematic tool. The editing of The Green Mile enhances its philosophical and emotional themes. Time and redemption. The slow, steady flow of the film reflects the slow march of justice and the pain of carrying guilt over time, especially in Paul's case. The editing mirrors how time drags in prison, especially for those condemned. Spiritual tension. By lingering on character reactions, particularly during moments of grace, death, or realization, the editor reinforces the spiritual tension in each scene. This isn't just about what happens, it's about how it feels to those experiencing it. Bullseye 6. Are there pacing issues? While The Green Mile is widely praised for its immersive pacing, some may find sections of the film too slow or dialogue-heavy, especially during the first act. However, this pacing is intentional. It reflects the rhythm of prison life, the moral weight of death row decisions, and the emotional build-up to Coffey's fate. There are no extraneous subplots. Everything included serves character depth or thematic layering. In this way, what some may view as slow is actually a form of emotional pacing, inviting introspection, not boredom. Whiteheaver checkmark final verdict. The editing and pacing of The Green Mile are masterfully aligned with its story, tone, and message. Richard Francis Bruce ensures that every scene flows with emotional logic, every cut serves a purpose, and every pause carries meaning. By embracing a deliberate rhythm, the film gives viewers space to reflect on compassion, mortality, justice, and grace, which are the very heart of the narrative. Gold Military Medal Hatchet's not just well edited, it's soulfully paced, like a slow walk towards something sacred and tragic. Would you like this tailored into a YouTube script voiceover for your channel facts and review? I can make it more conversational and structured for video storytelling if needed. The Green Mile, 1999. Soundtrack and score analysis. Composer, Thomas Newman. In The Green Mile, the score composed by Thomas Newman plays a quietly profound role in shaping the film's tone, atmosphere, and emotional power. Known for his emotionally resonant and understated musical style, American Beauty, The Shawshank Redemption, Newman brings to this film a haunting blend of melancholy, grace, and mysticism, creating a soundscape that subtly carries the audience through its 3-hour emotional journey. Violin 1. Tone and atmosphere, subtle, sacred, and timeless. Newman's music throughout The Green Mile is restrained and atmospheric. He avoids grand orchestral flourishes, opting instead for gentle piano melodies, ambient textures, and soft string arrangements. This minimalist approach suits the film's slow-burning emotional rhythm and enhances its reflective tone. Melancholy and reverence. The score conveys a sense of sorrow and reverence, not just because the characters are facing death, but because the film is ultimately about life, redemption, and the mystery of grace. Newman's delicate use of strings and piano emphasizes these themes with quiet dignity. Spiritual undertones. The music often feels otherworldly, echoing the supernatural elements tied to John Coffey's abilities. Instead of using eerie or dramatic music, Newman opts for hushed, awe-filled compositions, suggesting that the miracles are divine, not monstrous. Musical note 2. Key musical motifs and themes. Newman's score features recurring motifs that evolve as the film progresses. These motifs aren't always melodic. Sometimes they are more like musical moods or phrases that reinforce character arcs and narrative developments. A. Coffee on the Mile, the soul of the film. One of the most emotionally resonant themes in the score, this piece plays during key scenes involving John Coffey. The theme is gentle, often played on soft piano or ambient strings, reflecting Coffey's innocence, vulnerability, and spiritual power. The theme doesn't cry out for attention, it whispers, like Coffey himself. It recurs during moments of empathy, healing, and farewell, helping to tie these emotions together across different scenes. B. The Green Mile theme, sadness and inevitability. The titular theme accompanies scenes set on the death row corridor, the Green Mile. Its slow tempo and mournful tone underscore the idea that every step down that hallway is a step closer to death. It's particularly effective in execution scenes, where the score swells subtly as the walk begins. See subtle use of Americana and period-inspired music. To reflect the 1930s setting, Newman incorporates hints of blues, jazz, and southern spiritual textures. While these aren't dominant, they give the score a sense of time and place without being overbearing. Speaker off 3. Silence and stillness as musical choices. One of the most powerful aspects of the Green Mile's sound design is the deliberate use of silence. Moments of execution. During executions, especially the botched one of Edouard Delacroix, Newman lets silence and ambient sounds, like the hum of the lights, the buzz of the electric chair, or the panicked breathing, take over. The absence of music makes these scenes more immediate and brutal. Supernatural events. When John Coffey performs miracles, the music often drops out entirely, replaced by soft wind sounds or faint ambient hums. This enhances the spiritual mystery of the moment, making it feel outside the realm of normal experience. Emotional conversations. Many of the film's intimate dialogues, such as Paul's confession about the pain of outliving everyone, or his farewell to Coffey, are accompanied by very soft underscoring or none at all, allowing the actors' performances to lead. Integration with narrative and emotion. Thomas Newman's score doesn't dominate the film, it supports it. It acts like an emotional undercurrent, subtly amplifying key beats without ever distracting the audience. During Coffey's healing moments, the music rises ever so slightly when Coffey performs his miracles. It's not triumphant, it's gentle, solemn, and filled with awe. This tonal restraint mirrors the characters' own reactions. They don't fully understand what they are witnessing, but they feel its significance. During goodbyes and deaths. In scenes where characters say farewell, either to each other or to life, the score becomes mournful and reflective, never melodramatic. The music helps viewers process grief without telling them how to feel. Emotional aftershocks. After dramatic or devastating scenes, Newman often inserts short reflective cues, like soft piano chords or ambient sound beds, to let the emotions linger rather than cut abruptly into the next scene. Optical Disc 5. Period songs and diegetic sound. Though the original score is central to the film's tone, The Green Mile also uses period songs and diegetic music, music heard by the characters, to ground the film in its 1930s setting. Songs like Cheek to Cheek, used when Paul and his wife go to the movies, or Did You Ever See a Dream Walking, add a nostalgic warmth to the world. These tracks contrast with the weighty score, giving the viewer a sense of the wider world outside the prison, a reminder of normal life and joy. Trophy 6. Critical acclaim and legacy. While Thomas Newman was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Score for The Green Mile, he lost to The Red Violin. However, his work on this film is still considered one of the most emotionally effective and thematically aligned scores of the late 1990s. Critics praised how the music never overwhelmed the story, yet deepened its emotional resonance. Fans of the film often cite the score as one of the reasons the film remains haunting and unforgettable, even decades later. White have a checkmark final verdict. Thomas Newman's score for The Green Mile is not loud, flashy, or melodramatic. It is deeply human, spiritual, and poignant. It underscores the film's themes of compassion, suffering, and redemption with a voice that is more prayer than performance. Through gentle motifs, atmospheric textures, and emotionally aware silence, the score becomes the soul of the film, guiding the viewer through grief, wonder, and ultimately peace. Gold Military Medal # The Green Mile doesn't just play music, it breathes through it. Would you like this restructured into a YouTube voiceover narration format for your facts and review channel? I can add an intro and outro or make it bilingual, Urdu-English, as well. The Green Mile, 1999. Themes and Messages. Directed by Frank Darabont, based on the novel by Stephen King. Frank Darabont's The Green Mile is far more than a supernatural prison drama. Beneath its emotionally charged narrative and powerful performances lies a rich tapestry of philosophical, moral, and spiritual themes that question the nature of justice, the presence of grace, and the burden of human suffering. The film's thematic depth is subtle but profound, leaving viewers not just entertained, but deeply moved and introspective. Scales #1. Justice versus injustice. Sometimes the wrong people die, and the right ones suffer. At its core, The Green Mile is an indictment of the flawed human justice system. John Coffey, an innocent man, is wrongly convicted and executed, a symbolic representation of how justice, even when administered with protocol, can result in moral failure. The guards, especially Paul Edgecombe, struggle internally with the system they serve. They follow rules, but they know the system is imperfect. Characters like Percy Wetmore and Wild Bill Wharton represent the abuse of power and the chaos that justice cannot always prevent. This tension between legal justice and moral justice echoes throughout the film, asking, what happens when the system does everything right, but the result is still wrong? #2. Spirituality, miracles and Christ allegory. He killed them with their love. The film's strongest undercurrent is deeply spiritual and symbolic. John Coffey is portrayed as a Christ-like figure, embodying innocence, sacrifice, and healing. He heals others at a cost to himself, absorbing their pain and illness, like Christ bearing the sins of others. His initials, JC, are an intentional reference. His final walk down the Green Mile resembles a walk to crucifixion, complete with resignation, forgiveness, and grace. However, Coffey's miracles don't come with fanfare. They are quiet, gentle, and met with fear or skepticism, a commentary on how humanity often fails to recognize divinity when it appears in humble form. Broken Heart 3. The burden of empathy and guilt. I'm tired, boss. Tired of people being ugly to each other. Paul Edgecombe, the central narrator, represents the human conscience. His journey is about recognizing injustice, grappling with guilt, and the lifelong burden of empathy. Paul is tormented by his role in Coffey's execution, even decades later. His pain is not just about Coffey's death, but about his own helplessness in stopping it. The film raises questions about moral responsibility. Should one break the law to do the right thing? Is obedience still virtuous when it results in harm? This theme highlights how witnessing cruelty, and doing nothing to stop it, can spiritually age a person, just as Paul continues to live long after everyone he loves is gone. 4. The mystery of human suffering. People hurt the ones they love. That's how it is all around the world. One of the film's most challenging and thought-provoking themes is the nature of suffering. John Coffey can heal others, yet he cannot escape execution. Delacroix and his mouse, Mr. Jingles, represent innocence and companionship in the face of death. The Green Mile itself becomes a symbol of fate, where each man must walk toward his own end, whether just or unjust. The film doesn't offer easy answers. Instead, it reflects on the inevitability of suffering and the human need to find meaning in it. Dove-5. Compassion, redemption and humanity. Though filled with cruelty and death, The Green Mile is ultimately a story of redemption and human decency. Paul and the other guards, brutal, Dean, show kindness, even to those society has condemned. The idea that people, even criminals, can be treated with dignity and love is revolutionary within the context of a death row prison. Redemption doesn't always mean forgiveness from others. Sometimes, it's about forgiving oneself, as Paul struggles to do. This theme reinforces the idea that small acts of kindness, even in a world filled with darkness, matter deeply. #Scales-6. Mortality and the Weight of Time. The film is framed by an elderly Paul Edgecombe, looking back on his time in the prison and wrestling with outliving everyone he loved. The implication that Coffey gifted him long life becomes a double-edged blessing. Paul witnesses the deaths of friends, family, and even his wife, burdened with memories he cannot escape. The film suggests that time itself can be a punishment, a slow unraveling of meaning unless one can find peace. Mortality in The Green Mile is not just about dying, it's about what kind of life one lives and what legacies of grief or grace are left behind. 7. Dehumanization of the condemned. One of the most powerful commentaries in the film is about how society dehumanizes prisoners, especially those on death row. The Green Mile is a corridor where human lives are treated like scheduled procedures. Through characters like Coffey and Delacroix, the film forces the audience to see the humanity of the condemned, their fears, their kindness, their need for connection. The execution of Delacroix, especially when botched, becomes a moral horror show, exposing how easily institutional processes can turn monstrous. This theme critiques the way society marginalizes, forgets, or condemns those it finds inconvenient or frightening. 8. Power and corruption. The film explores how positions of power, even in small environments like a prison block, can lead to cruelty and abuse. Percy Wetmore, who is politically protected, is a symbol of unchecked authority and sadism. He takes pleasure in others' pain, hiding behind his connections. His eventual psychological breakdown is not framed as justice, but as another example of how power without empathy leads to ruin. This theme reminds viewers that true authority requires moral clarity, not just rank or influence. Whiteheaver checkmark final verdict. The Green Mile is not a simple prison story. It's a meditation on justice, mercy, guilt, and the unseen grace within human suffering. It forces viewers to confront hard truths, that the world is not always fair, that miracles can go unnoticed, and that empathy may be the most painful and powerful human trait. Through carefully drawn characters, supernatural elements, and spiritual symbolism, the film delivers thought-provoking messages that leave a lasting emotional impact. Gold Military Medal # The Green Mile walks its viewers through death row, but its real journey is through the soul. Would you like me to convert this into a YouTube video voiceover script tailored for your channel facts and review, with a hook, narrative breaks, and storytelling tone? I can also translate sections into Urdu English mix if needed. The Green Mile, 1999. Visual effects and CGI analysis. Directed by Frank Darabont, VFX by ILM, Industrial Light and Magic. Though The Green Mile is primarily a drama set in a 1930s death row prison, it subtly integrates supernatural elements and visual effects to convey the mystical nature of John Coffey's abilities. Rather than relying on grand CGI spectacles, the film uses minimal but meaningful effects that enhance the story's emotional and spiritual core without ever overwhelming it. The balance between practical effects, restrained CGI, and careful cinematography creates a seamless experience. Crystal Ball 1. Supernatural effects, subtle, symbolic, and effective. The most prominent use of visual effects in the film comes during scenes where John Coffey performs miracles, healing ailments or drawing pain out of others. These moments required a visual language that didn't feel out of place in an otherwise grounded setting. Mouth of Flies effect. Perhaps the most memorable effect involves Coffey inhaling a person's sickness and then exhaling clouds of black, insect-like energy, which manifest as ethereal swarms of tiny particles or flies that disperse into the air. These CGI particles symbolize the physical expulsion of evil or illness. The effect is understated, dark, smoky, and spiritual, not flashy or grotesque. The digital work here was tastefully integrated, ensuring it did not break the film's period authenticity. Healing Paul Edgecombe's urinary tract infection. This scene used subtle lighting shifts and performance cues with minor digital enhancements to mark the change in Paul's demeanor, focusing more on actor reaction than spectacle. Resurrecting Mr. Jingles, the mouse. This was a clever blend of practical animal training and CGI enhancements. When Mr. Jingles is brought back to life, the moment is touching, with visual effects used sparingly to create a glimmering life effect that is gentle and believable. Hammer and Wrench #2. Use of practical effects, anchoring the supernatural in reality. The Green Mile relies heavily on practical effects and traditional filmmaking techniques. This choice grounds the film in physical realism, which makes the occasional digital effects feel more powerful when they do appear. Execution scenes, electric chair. The electrocution sequences, especially the botched execution of Edouard Delacroix, are crafted using practical effects, prosthetics, makeup, and pyrotechnics. The horrific realism, charred skin, electrical arcs, flaming hair, is both disturbing and convincing. No flashy CGI is needed. The horror is entirely visceral and tactile. These effects were instrumental in generating emotional revulsion, not just visual awe. Lighting and set design enhancements. The Green Mile corridor is often portrayed with a faint, almost mystical glow. The lighting changes slightly during key moments, possibly enhanced digitally in post-production. These small tweaks helped amplify mood and tone without being obvious. Scales #3. Blending CGI into a period piece, a delicate balance. One of the film's greatest visual achievements is how well it integrates digital effects into a 1930s setting without creating anachronisms. Unlike many fantasy films, The Green Mile never looks like a VFX-heavy movie. The costumes, sets, and practical locations, like Cold Mountain Penitentiary, are so authentic that even the CGI feels like a natural extension of the world. Frank Darabont and ILM chose restraint over visual dominance, ensuring that the miraculous moments still felt human and grounded. Electric Light Bulb 4. Symbolism through effects, enhancing thematic resonance. The effects are not just functional, they are symbolic. When John Coffey releases pain, the dark energy escaping his mouth isn't just a visual trick. It's a metaphor for spiritual cleansing, empathy, and the weight of sin. The fact that this is visibly unpleasant, insects, darkness, reflects how suffering must be absorbed and expelled, not simply erased. These effects visually support the Christ allegory without overstatement. In contrast to modern films where effects often dominate scenes, The Green Mile uses them to amplify emotion, reinforcing the film's introspective tone. 5. Do the effects distract or enhance? From a third-person critical perspective, the effects in The Green Mile are exemplary in their subtlety and storytelling alignment. They never draw attention to themselves, which is a testament to their quality and integration. Viewers often remember the emotion of the scenes, Coffey healing, Dell's death, rather than the effects themselves, a sign that the VFX serve the narrative, not the spectacle. Trophy 6. Legacy and influence. While The Green Mile didn't push technological boundaries in the way The Matrix or Star Wars did in the same year, its use of VFX as emotional and symbolic tools set a precedent for how CGI can quietly support drama and character-driven storytelling. It showcased that less can be more, especially in a genre where overuse of effects can break immersion. Today, it's considered a masterclass in restrained visual effects design. Whiteheavy checkmark final verdict. The Green Mile uses visual effects not to wow, but to whisper, to support moments of awe, sorrow, healing, and mystery. Whether it's the delicate swarms of pain leaving John Coffey's body or the visceral horror of an electric chair malfunction, the film's effects are always emotionally purposeful. Gold military medal hash in The Green Mile. The miracles are small, the pain is great, and the effects walk hand in hand with humanity. Would you like this breakdown transformed into a YouTube-friendly voiceover script for your Facts and Review channel with intro, outro, or bilingual transitions, Urdu English? I can help with formatting that too. The Green Mile, 1999. Set design and locations. Director, Frank Darabont. Production designer, Terrence Marsh. Filming locations, Tennessee State Prison, Nashville, Warner Brothers Studios, and rural Louisiana landscapes. The Green Mile transports its audience into the somber, spiritually heavy atmosphere of a 1930s death row prison, a world crafted with remarkable authenticity and emotional resonance. The set design, props, and chosen locations are not just functional backdrops. They act as living, breathing characters that reflect the psychological and moral undertones of the film. Every visual element contributes to the overall feeling of inevitability, injustice, and introspection that defines this poignant narrative. 1. The Green Mile Cell Block, A World Within Walls. The central setting of the film, Cold Mountain Penitentiary's E-Block, is among the most iconic prison settings in cinematic history. Built from scratch on a sound stage, this detailed and claustrophobic set was designed to appear simultaneously ordinary and otherworldly. The mile-long corridor with linoleum floors, which earned it the nickname Green Mile, evokes a sense of routine, dread, and spiritual limbo. The soft green hue of the floors, coupled with warm amber lighting and exposed brickwork, gives the space a unique identity, sterile, yet oddly calming. It contrasts sharply with the electric chair chamber, which feels harsher and more industrial. The rows of iron-barred cells, oak desks, filing cabinets, old fans, and 1930s props add realism, while the symmetry of the corridor enhances the feeling of ritualized death. The prison block becomes a visual metaphor for purgatory, a space where men wait for judgment, redemption, or damnation. It's a place suspended between life and death, echoing the film's spiritual themes. Electric Light Bulb 2. Death Row Execution Room, the ultimate ritual space. The execution chamber, nicknamed Old Sparky, is a small yet deeply disturbing set. The wooden electric chair, surrounded by black curtains and lined with sawdust to absorb bodily fluids, is both grim and ceremonial. The somber design of this room underscores the inhumanity of capital punishment, without overdramatizing. The presence of a viewing gallery for witnesses, and the calm professionalism of the guard's protocol, adds an eerie realism, making executions feel procedural, not dramatic, which makes them even more horrifying. This environment was crafted to strip human beings of their dignity, which makes the acts of kindness and empathy from the guards even more poignant. Evergreen 3. Exterior locations, evoking rural America and innocence. Beyond the prison walls, the film occasionally transports viewers to the lush green countryside, including flashbacks to the crimes, scenes at the warden's home, and the elderly Paul Edgecombe's retirement home. The contrast between the harsh stone walls of the prison and the warm, golden hues of rural settings is visually and thematically deliberate. The outside world represents freedom, natural order, and emotional life, while the prison symbolizes punishment, control, and inevitability. The scenes set at Warden Hal Muss' home, especially during his wife's illness, offer a humanizing domestic space filled with light, books, and warmth, a needed emotional counterweight to the coldness of E-Block. Round Pushpin 4. Tennessee State Prison, a haunting authenticity. Although the prison block interiors were built on a sound stage, several key exteriors were filmed at the Tennessee State Prison, an imposing Gothic-style facility built in the late 1800s. Its weathered stone walls, barred windows, and massive gates lend a haunting, fortress-like realism to the setting. This gives the film a sense of geographical permanence and historical accuracy. The grandeur and age of the building underline how institutions outlast individuals, and how suffering can become structurally embedded in the systems meant to uphold order. 5. Props and period details, immersion through authenticity. The production team paid meticulous attention to 1930s-era props and set dressing. Electric fans, typewriters, light fixtures, vintage uniforms, firearms, and transport vehicles were all sourced or custom-built to match the time. The costuming of both prisoners and guards, including khaki uniforms, polished shoes, and hats, aligns perfectly with the world of pre-war Southern America. Even small elements, such as John Coffey's oversized shirt, the tin plate used by inmates, or Mr. Jingle's tiny cigar box circus, feel lived in and significant. These tangible details don't just create a believable setting. They anchor the emotional and symbolic threads of the story in visual realism. 6. Symbolic use of space, isolation versus connection. Every set location is thematically charged. The isolation of death row contrasts with the communal nature of the guard's office space. John Coffey's cell, though surrounded by walls and bars, often feels more serene or divine, while Percy's presence corrupts the space around him, creating tension and visual imbalance. The narrow hallway, the actual Green Mile, becomes a symbolic path to death, which every condemned prisoner walks. Its repeated presence, from different angles and lighting conditions, gives it ritualistic power. White have a checkmark final verdict. The set design and locations in the Green Mile are masterfully constructed to serve the emotional, thematic, and narrative layers of the film. Whether it's the meticulously built E-Block prison set, the deeply atmospheric execution chamber, or the evocative rural landscapes outside, each environment deepens the audience's immersion and supports the story's moral weight. Gold military medal hash in the Green Mile. The walls may be made of brick and steel, but they echo with faith, fear, and forgiveness. Would you like this turned into a YouTube video voiceover script, including a compelling intro and outro for your Facts and Review channel? I can also translate key parts into an Urdu-English mix if needed. The Green Mile, 1999. Dialogue and script analysis. Screenplay by Frank Darabont. Based on the novel by Stephen King. The Green Mile is not only a powerful narrative of supernatural grace and capital punishment, but also a deeply literary and emotionally resonant script that balances raw realism with lyrical poignancy. Adapted by Frank Darabont from Stephen King's serialized novel, the screenplay is a masterclass in measured pacing, authentic character voice, and philosophical weight. The dialogue in particular breathes life into the characters and themes, often becoming the emotional heartbeat of the film. Performing Arts 1. Authentic and character-driven dialogue. Every line in the Green Mile feels true to the time period, setting, and individual personalities. Characters don't speak in flashy movie phrases. They speak in ways that reveal their morality, fear, strength, or prejudice. Paul Edgecombe's voice, played by Tom Hanks, is calm, respectful, and deeply introspective. His dialogue reflects a man burdened by duty and conscience. John Coffey's speech is simple, gentle, and childlike, marked by humility and kindness. His dialogue is sparse but emotionally devastating. Percy Wetmore, the cruel and arrogant guard, speaks in a sharp, petty, and cruel tone, his dialogue designed to grate and expose his immaturity and power hunger. Edouard Delacroix's thick Cajun accent, and the humorous yet tragic way he interacts with others, add color and pathos to his character. This attention to detail ensures that every voice is distinct, and the dialogue is always in service of building emotional depth and moral contrast. Speech Balloon 2. Memorable and iconic lines. Several lines from The Green Mile have become deeply etched in cinematic memory, not because they are dramatic or grand, but because they are profound, haunting, or heartbreaking. I'm tired, boss. Tired of people being ugly to each other. Spoken by John Coffey, this line is the emotional core of the film, a quiet lament from a man carrying the pain of others. It's simple, yet universally powerful. He killed them with their love. That's how it is every day, all over the world. Paul's reflection on how Coffey experienced the pain of others cuts deep. It's a moment of spiritual reckoning that stays with the viewer long after the film ends. On the day of my judgment, when I stand before God, what am I going to say? A line that captures Paul's inner torment about executing a man he knows is innocent. The kind of dialogue that elevates the script to a moral meditation. These quotes are not written for spectacle. They arise from character conflict, grief, and ethical questioning, which gives them lasting emotional power. Writing hand #3. Balanced tone, emotional, philosophical, and natural. The script maintains a delicate balance between somber realism, spiritual allegory, and gentle humor. Scenes with Mr. Jingles, the mouse, provide light-hearted relief and human connection without breaking tone. Dialogue between the guards often includes small jokes, banter, or mundane details, which make the relationships feel authentic and lived in. Coffey's conversations with Paul often explore grace, pain, and the supernatural without sounding preachy or implausible, a testament to Darabont's restraint. This ability to weave naturalism with mythic undertones makes the dialogue deeply human while supporting the film's themes of justice, redemption, and faith. Film #4. Narration as framing device. The story is told through the eyes of an elderly Paul Edgecombe, who narrates the story from a nursing home decades later. The narration adds emotional depth and reflective insight. It allows the script to revisit the past with wisdom and sorrow, giving the audience emotional cues and a broader perspective. These narrative voiceovers never feel like exposition. They feel like confessions, journal entries, or prayers. This framing device turns the film into not just a story, but a spiritual memory, filled with regret, wonder, and reverence. Bullseye 5. Faithful adaptation of source material. Stephen King's original novel was rich in theme, philosophy, and character psychology. Darabont's screenplay remains remarkably faithful, translating King's emotional prose into vivid, spoken drama. Key internal monologues are turned into powerful exchanges or voiceovers. The emphasis on morality and empathy remains intact, even when restructured for screen pacing. Dialogue isn't overloaded with explanation. It trusts the actors and audience to understand subtext. This faithfulness to the source gives the script its emotional authenticity and literary weight. 6. Subtext and emotional resonance. Many of the film's most important moments are quiet exchanges loaded with subtext. When Paul offers Coffey a chance to escape, and Coffey gently refuses, saying he's ready, the few lines exchanged are loaded with unspoken grief and divine fatalism. The interactions between Brutus' brutal howl and the inmates are laced with compassion beneath formality, showing how dialogue can subtly signal moral alignment. White have a checkmark final verdict. The dialogue in The Green Mile is rich, restrained, and resonant. It avoids melodrama, instead achieving emotional power through clarity, sincerity, and purpose. Frank Darabont's adaptation respects Stephen King's tone while elevating the material for the screen, resulting in a script that is both literary and cinematic. Gold military medal # the words in The Green Mile don't just tell a story, they echo in the soul. In whispers, confessions, and prayers, the script delivers its deepest truths. Would you like this transformed into a scripted narration or voiceover for your YouTube channel Facts and Review? I can create a formatted version with intro, transitions, or even a bilingual presentation, Urdu-English mix, to match your style. The Green Mile, 1999. Genre execution analysis. Primary genres: supernatural drama, crime, fantasy. Directed by Frank Darabont, based on the novel by Stephen King. At first glance, The Green Mile appears to fall comfortably into the prison drama category. Yet under Frank Darabont's direction, the film evolves into something far more genre-defying, a spiritual epic disguised as a tale of death row justice. It blends elements of crime, supernatural fantasy, morality play, and humanist drama, all while subverting conventional genre tropes to deliver a deeply philosophical and emotionally resonant experience. 1. Prison drama framework, familiar, yet elevated. The core setting and initial structure of the film clearly align with classic prison dramas, such as The Shawshank Redemption, also by Darabont. There are tense relationships between guards and inmates, institutional hierarchies and procedures, daily routines and looming executions. However, The Green Mile does not use prison as a backdrop for escape or rebellion. Instead, it becomes a moral crucible, a confined space where characters are confronted with questions of life, death, justice, and divine intervention. By focusing not on physical confinement, but on spiritual reckoning, the film elevates the prison genre into the metaphysical realm. Ghost 2. Supernatural elements, blended with realism. One of the most daring aspects of the film's genre execution is the introduction of supernatural fantasy within an otherwise grounded, realistic setting. John Coffey, a wrongfully accused giant of a man, possesses healing powers. He can absorb pain and illness through touch and release it in the form of glowing spores or light. His miracles, healing urinary infections, reviving a mouse, and curing a brain tumor, are presented without explanation, adding an element of mystical or rather than horror or fantasy excess. Despite these supernatural events, the film never leaves the realm of emotional realism. This balance allows the genre fusion to work. Viewers suspend disbelief because the emotional truth remains intact. Coffey is less a fantasy figure and more a Christ-like archetype, deepening the film's spiritual impact. Scales #3. Moral drama over legal thriller. Although the film involves a crime and justice system, it avoids the typical beats of a legal thriller. There are no courtroom scenes, no legal strategies, no procedural investigations. Instead, it is a moral drama about the weight of taking a life, even lawfully, the complicity of good men in a flawed system, the question of whether miracles can or should redeem justice. This choice subverts expectations by focusing on spiritual dilemmas, not legal ones. It's less about solving a case and more about bearing witness to injustice. Performing Arts 4. Emotional depth over genre tropes. Typical prison or fantasy films often fall into the trap of overusing violence to create stakes, relying on clear-cut heroes and villains, using miracles as plot devices to force happy endings. The Green Mile resists these conventions. It portrays violence as procedural and deeply disturbing, e.g., the botched execution of Edouard Delacroix. Develops complex characters, including morally grey figures like Brutus Brutal Howell and the deeply flawed yet empathetic Warden. Ends on a note of profound melancholy. Coffey is executed despite his innocence and gifts, making the film's message one of moral tragedy, not victory. These genre subversions make the film feel both familiar and groundbreaking. High Voltage Sign 5. Balanced tones, suspense, heart, and stillness. Despite its runtime of over 3 hours, The Green Mile manages to maintain a gripping balance of tension and intimacy. This is achieved by suspenseful moments, e.g., Perce's growing cruelty, Dell's execution. Tender scenes of human connection, Paul and Coffey's bond, Mr. Jingles. Supernatural interludes that are neither bombastic nor showy, but quietly wondrous. Rather than a conventional action-driven structure, the film follows an emotional crescendo, building slowly toward an overwhelming emotional release at the end. 6. Themes anchored in genre, not limited by it. The blend of genres serves a thematic purpose. Fantasy allows the audience to reflect on spiritual grace and injustice through the metaphor of a miracle worker. Drama grounds the film in the harsh realities of life, death, and systemic cruelty. Crime or prison setting exposes the dehumanization of punishment and the complexities of justice. Together, these elements allow The Green Mile to explore existential questions, like the nature of sin, redemption, and human cruelty, in a way that more conventional genre films rarely dare to. White heavy checkmark final verdict. The Green Mile is not defined by a single genre. It transcends genre. While it begins as a prison drama, it slowly unfolds into a supernatural parable, moral allegory, an emotional journey that blends realism with mythic storytelling. Gold military medal # rather than following genre rules, The Green Mile redefines them, crafting a story where miracles feel real, cruelty feels systemic, and justice is never simple. Would you like this breakdown transformed into a YouTube script format with a narrator intro and outro for your Facts and Review channel? I can also prepare a genre comparison segment, e.g., vs. Shawshank Redemption, if you're planning a follow-up video. The Green Mile, 1999. Social and Cultural Commentary Analysis. Directed by Frank Darabont. Based on the novel by Stephen King. Genre, supernatural drama, prison drama, moral allegory. Although set in the 1930s American South, The Green Mile delivers powerful and enduring social commentary that resonates with contemporary issues well beyond its historical backdrop. Through its characters, setting, and thematic focus, the film navigates sensitive societal topics, especially racism, systemic injustice, capital punishment, and the dehumanization of the incarcerated, with emotional depth and narrative grace. Rather than using these issues as simple plot points, the film weaves them organically into the story, offering a deeply affecting cultural critique. Scales #1. Capital punishment and the death penalty. At its core, The Green Mile is a film about life, death, and the ethics of state-sanctioned execution. It centers around death row, nicknamed the Green Mile due to the color of the prison floor, where inmates await execution by electric chair. Key elements. The executions are shown in harrowing detail, emphasizing the cold, ritualistic nature of the process. The botched execution of Edward Delacroix, caused deliberately by guard Percy Wetmore, serves as a shocking condemnation of institutional cruelty and indifference. Through the character of Paul Edgecombe, Tom Hanks, the film explores the moral weight borne by those tasked with carrying out death sentences. Rather than advocating a clear-cut position, the film invites the audience to contemplate the emotional and spiritual cost of capital punishment, especially when the system fails, as it does with John Coffey. Medium dark skin tone emoji modifier 2. Racism and the injustice of a segregated society. One of the most poignant and painful commentaries in the film is its depiction of racial injustice. John Coffey, Michael Clarke Duncan, is a black man falsely accused of murdering 2 white girls. His gentle nature and supernatural gift stand in tragic contrast to the brutal way he is treated by society and the justice system. Social implications. Coffey is arrested, tried, and condemned with no substantial evidence, a clear nod to the racially motivated legal practices of the Jim Crow era. Despite his innocence and miraculous abilities, Coffey's fate is sealed simply because of his race and social status, reflecting a system designed to devalue black lives. The fact that even well-meaning white characters like Paul Edgecombe feel helpless to change the outcome underscores the institutional power imbalance. The film uses Coffey as a symbolic figure, a Christ-like innocent, whose execution serves as a metaphor for centuries of racially motivated violence and injustice. 3. Abuse of power and institutional cruelty. Through the character of Percy Wetmore, the film portrays the abuse of authority within prison and justice systems. Percy, a sadistic and incompetent guard, is granted his job through nepotism and wields power without accountability. His deliberate sabotage of Delacroix's execution is a chilling example of how unchecked power can be used to dehumanize and inflict suffering. The other guards, though more compassionate, are complicit to some degree, unable or unwilling to challenge the hierarchy, reflecting real-world systems that protect the powerful over the just. The film critiques not just the individuals who abuse power, but the systems that enable them, making it a broader commentary on institutional failure. Handshake 4. Empathy, redemption, and the human condition. One of the most subversive commentaries in The Green Mile is its humanization of prisoners. Delacroix, though guilty, is shown to be capable of kindness, remorse, and friendship, particularly in his bond with the mouse Mr. Jingles. Arlen Bitterbuck and other inmates are portrayed with dignity and complexity, challenging the stereotype of the irredeemable criminal. The film suggests that empathy and redemption are possible within even the darkest environments, but that systems of punishment often ignore or destroy such possibilities. Counterclockwise arrows 5. Historical context, contemporary relevance. Though set in the 1930s, the themes explored in The Green Mile, racial injustice, wrongful convictions, capital punishment, and abuse of power, remain strikingly relevant today. Modern parallels can be drawn to contemporary cases of racial profiling, police brutality, and flaws in the criminal justice system. The story of an innocent black man being executed by a system that ignores truth for the sake of order continues to mirror real-world events. Rather than feeling dated, the film serves as a timeless warning about how far society still has to go in correcting systemic injustice. Scroll 6. Subtlety and emotional authenticity. What makes The Green Mile's social commentary so powerful is that it doesn't preach. The commentary emerges through character arcs and emotional moments, not didactic speeches. Through symbolism, like Coffey as a sacrificial figure, or The Green Mile as a metaphor for the slow walk toward societal death. Through the contrast between human decency and bureaucratic coldness. Because these themes are embedded in the characters' experiences and the emotional fabric of the film, they feel natural, profound, and universally human. White heavy checkmark final verdict. The Green Mile uses its supernatural prison drama framework to deliver one of the most quietly powerful social critiques in modern cinema. By exploring racial injustice, capital punishment, institutional cruelty, and moral accountability, it transcends its genre and becomes a meditation on humanity itself. Gold military medal more than just a film about miracles and death row. The Green Mile holds a mirror to the dark corners of society, asking viewers to reckon with injustice, mercy, and the fragile line between power and compassion. Would you like a video script version of this for your Facts and Review YouTube channel, complete with visual cues or narration lines? I can also add Urdu-English bilingual narration if that's part of your format. The Green Mile, 1999. Audience Engagement Analysis. Directed by Frank Darabont. Genre: supernatural drama, prison drama. Starring Tom Hanks, Michael Clarke Duncan, David Morse. Red Heart #1. Profound emotional resonance. The Green Mile is widely regarded as one of the most emotionally powerful films of its time, and possibly of all time. From its earliest scenes, the film establishes a deep emotional connection with the audience through character-driven storytelling, a slow, thoughtful narrative pace that allows emotional tension to build. Themes that tap into universal human experiences: grief, injustice, compassion, and loss. Viewers are not simply passive observers. They are pulled into the moral and emotional journey of the characters, particularly Paul Edgecombe and John Coffey. By the film's conclusion, the audience is left not only tearful but also morally contemplative. 2. Moments that elicit tears and heartbreak. Few films create as many tear-inducing moments as The Green Mile. It is often cited by audiences across the world as a film that left them emotionally wrecked, especially in its final act. Notable emotional peaks include the botched execution of Edouard Delacroix, a harrowing and inhumane scene that evokes both shock and grief. Coffey's gentle demeanor, contrasted with his looming execution, which inspires empathy and sorrow. The final walk, I'm tired, boss, tired of being on the road. A haunting and spiritually devastating moment that remains etched in viewers' memories. These scenes do not rely on melodrama but on the authentic emotional weight of the story, character performances, and music. Mouseface 3. Unexpected sources of warmth and connection. Despite its heavy subject matter, the film engages audiences with moments of gentle humor, warmth, and even hope, particularly through the subplot involving Mr. Jingles, the mouse. Mr. Jingles becomes an emotional touchstone for characters and viewers alike. His miraculous revival and eventual survival act as symbols of endurance and innocence. These lighter scenes provide the audience with emotional relief, making the heavier moments even more powerful in contrast. This balance between sorrow and warmth is key to sustaining viewer engagement across the film's 3-hour runtime. 4. Intellectual and moral reflection. Beyond emotional impact, The Green Mile engages viewers on a philosophical level. It invites deep reflection and post-viewing discussion through its exploration of moral responsibility. Can a just man participate in a system that kills the innocent? Faith and miracles. What is the nature of good and evil, and how do they manifest in people? Racial injustice. What does the story of John Coffey say about America's historical and ongoing treatment of black individuals? These questions linger in the mind long after the credits roll, inspiring repeat viewings and analytical conversations, particularly among fans of character-driven dramas and social commentaries. Speech Balloon 5. Quotable dialogue and memorable scenes. Many of the film's lines have become iconic, especially John Coffey's final words. I'm tired, boss. Tired of being on the road, lonely as a sparrow in the rain. Lines like these strike at the heart of human vulnerability and suffering, creating an emotional imprint that viewers often quote, revisit, and share. These scenes have become part of the cultural conversation surrounding the film. Globe with Meridians 6. Universal appeal across cultures and generations. Although The Green Mile is rooted in a specific historical and cultural context, the American South in the 1930s, its themes are universal. The emotional journey it offers resonates with audiences from diverse cultures because grief, injustice, and hope are global experiences. Younger generations, who discover the film anew and are struck by its sincerity and depth. Older viewers, who appreciate its classic style, moral complexity, and performances. The film's timeless message and emotional sincerity allow it to maintain its power across decades. Counterclockwise Arrows 7 invites rewatchability and new interpretations. Many viewers return to The Green Mile for repeat viewings, discovering subtle character nuances they missed before, deeper spiritual or symbolic meanings in Coffey's actions and words, greater appreciation for the supporting characters and their individual arcs. Each viewing offers new emotional textures, making it a film that matures with the audience. Whiteheaver checkmark final verdict. The Green Mile doesn't just tell a story. It immerses the audience in an emotional, moral, and spiritual experience. Its emotional highs and lows, powerful performances, and thought-provoking themes make it a film that lives on in the hearts and minds of those who watch it. Gold Military Medal # a film that doesn't merely entertain, but transforms. The Green Mile continues to engage audiences with its haunting sorrow, quiet grace, and deep humanity. Would you like this broken down into a script format for your Facts and Review YouTube channel? I can also add voiceover cues, segment headers, or Urdu translations if that suits your style. The Green Mile, 1999. Comparisons to similar films and works. Directed by Frank Darabont. Genre: supernatural drama prison film moral allegory. Based on the novel by Stephen King. Film projector #1. Within Frank Darabont's filmography. Frank Darabont's career is marked by his emotionally potent adaptations of Stephen King's literary works, particularly those that blend realistic human drama with metaphysical or spiritual elements. The Green Mile is often discussed alongside his earlier masterpiece, The Shawshank Redemption, 1994. Setting and theme similarity. Both films are set in prison environments and explore human dignity, hope, and the moral complexity of justice. However, The Green Mile leans more into spiritualism and the supernatural, while Shawshank is grounded in realism. Tone and mood. Shawshank is driven by quiet resilience and the triumph of hope, while The Green Mile is more emotionally devastating, driven by themes of powerlessness, sacrifice, and grace. Narrative structure. Both films use narrative framing and long-form storytelling, but The Green Mile incorporates magical realism, setting it apart in tone and style. Innovation. While Shawshank is a no-perfect example of classical storytelling, The Green Mile pushes further by integrating miraculous, otherworldly elements into a grounded, emotionally authentic setting. In comparison, The Green Mile stands as a more tragic, mythic counterpart to Darabont's earlier film, broader in scope and more explicitly moralistic. Ghost 2. Within the supernatural drama genre, The Green Mile is unique in its fusion of supernatural elements with grounded drama. In this sense, it draws comparison to films such as The Sixth Sense, 1999. Released the same year, The Sixth Sense similarly explored extraordinary powers through emotionally tormented characters. However, while The Sixth Sense leans into horror and suspense, The Green Mile uses the supernatural as a vehicle for emotional catharsis and moral commentary. Phenomenon, 1996, or Powder, 1995. These films also explore individuals with supernatural gifts misunderstood by society. The Green Mile stands out for its emotional maturity, spiritual gravity, and allegorical depth. It's less about spectacle and more about the divine burden of miraculous ability. The Lovely Bones, 2009. Like The Green Mile, this film explores death, innocence, and spiritual justice through a metaphysical lens. The Green Mile is far more grounded and emotionally impactful, whereas The Lovely Bones was criticized for relying too heavily on visual effects and fantasy sequences. Chains #3. Within the prison film genre. Unlike traditional prison films that center on escape, rebellion, or justice, The Green Mile uses its prison setting as a stage for moral and metaphysical drama. Compared to Dead Man Walking, 1995. Also explores the death penalty, but from a realistic and religious point of view. The Green Mile adds a fantastical element that universalizes the injustice, making it a broader moral fable. Escape from Alcatraz, 1979, or The Hurricane, 1999. These focus on physical confinement and wrongful imprisonment, while The Green Mile focuses on spiritual confinement, the emotional toll of witnessing and participating in state execution. Distinctiveness. What sets The Green Mile apart in the prison genre is its deep philosophical introspection, miraculous symbolism, and blend of grace and horror. It's not a story of escape, it's a story of acceptance, sorrow, and reluctant duty. Books 4. Among Stephen King adaptations. Stephen King is primarily known for horror, but The Green Mile, like Shawshank Redemption and Stand By Me, is based on one of his more emotional and humanistic stories. Compared to Carrie, 1976, or It, 2017. These lean heavily into fear, violence, and the grotesque. The Green Mile uses the supernatural not to terrify, but to reveal the divine and tragic in humanity. Misery, 1990. A character-driven King story with strong performances and moral tension, but more of a psychological thriller. The Green Mile builds its tension through emotional and spiritual stakes rather than physical peril. Unique position. Among King's works, The Green Mile is one of the most spiritual, emotionally resonant, and philosophically challenging, making it a standout that defies the horror label often attached to King adaptations. Performing Arts 5. Does it offer something new or familiar? Formulaic aspects. The use of a prison setting, a wrongfully accused black character, and a white narrator could have felt familiar or even cliched. However, the execution, both narrative and literal, is so earnest, heartfelt, and elevated by performance and tone that the film feels unique and original. What's new? A rare fusion of magic realism with capital punishment drama. A black messiah figure in mainstream Western cinema, treated with dignity and emotional gravity. A prison film that's more about emotional burden and spiritual release than crime or escape. White heavy checkmark final verdict. The Green Mile stands as a genre-blending masterpiece, distinct within Frank Darabont's filmography, the prison drama tradition, and Stephen King's adaptations. While it shares thematic DNA with films like The Shawshank Redemption, it offers a more mythic, emotionally operatic experience, filled with moral pain, divine mystery, and haunting grace. Gold military medal # unlike anything else in its genre. The Green Mile takes familiar cinematic elements and reassembles them into a slow-burning, soul-shaking exploration of guilt, sacrifice, and the divine spark in suffering humanity. Would you like me to convert this into a YouTube video script, or provide a comparative chart for visual presentation on screen? I can also translate or adapt this for Urdu English narration for your Facts and Review channel. The Green Mile, 1999. Symbolism and Metaphors Analysis. Directed by Frank Darabont. Based on the novel by Stephen King. Genre, supernatural drama prison allegory. Herb 1. The Green Mile as a metaphor for life and death. The title itself, The Green Mile, is a potent metaphor. It refers to the linoleum floor leading to the electric chair in the death row block, which has a faded green color. Symbolically, it represents the final journey every condemned man takes toward death, a literal and spiritual last mile. Deeper meaning. Beyond the prison, the Green Mile symbolizes every human being's walk toward the inevitable. Life becomes a long, painful journey toward death, and how one walks it, with dignity, love, cruelty, or grace, becomes the moral and emotional crux of the film. Cross # 2. John Coffey as a Christ figure. Perhaps the film's most powerful metaphor is John Coffey, played by Clarke Duncan, as an allegorical Christ-like figure. Initials, JC echo Jesus Christ. He possesses supernatural healing powers, curing Paul's infection, reviving Mr. Jingles, and drawing pain from others. He is wrongfully condemned, executed despite his innocence, and shows divine forgiveness and empathy. His sacrifice, accepting death despite his powers, serves as a redemptive act for those around him. Visual metaphors. When Coffey heals, light often shines subtly, and sounds echo like divine breath, enhancing the suggestion of a miraculous presence. His execution evokes the passion of Christ, a good man crucified by a flawed justice system. Through Coffey, the film elevates themes of redemption, sacrifice, and grace into spiritual terrain, prompting viewers to reflect on faith, morality, and justice. Mouseface 3. Mr. Jingles, Innocence, Miracles, and Continuity. The mouse, Mr. Jingles, serves as a small yet deeply symbolic figure. Symbol of innocence. In a place of death and despair, Mr. Jingles represents purity and harmlessness, a stark contrast to the grim surroundings. Miracle witness. When revived by Coffey, Mr. Jingles becomes evidence of the divine, a mouse that survives long after it should, possibly as a gift to Dell and later, to Paul. Memory and consequence. Mr. Jingles' long life reflects the lingering emotional burden that Paul carries, a living reminder of the events and the miracle he witnessed. In storytelling terms, Mr. Jingles acts as a symbol of faith, healing, and memory, offering a touch of magic and wonder amidst overwhelming sorrow. Scales # 4. The electric chair, metaphor for human fallibility. The electric chair, or Old Sparky, symbolizes the brutal finality of institutional justice, as well as the flawed execution of power by fallible humans. It represents state-sanctioned violence, a method that delivers death under the guise of law. When Delacroix's execution goes horribly wrong, it becomes a horrifying metaphor for the cruelty of man-made punishment, especially when corrupted by personal malice, Peirce's sabotage. Contrast with Coffey's execution. Though Coffey accepts his fate, the audience sees the electric chair as a tool that kills both the guilty and the innocent, prompting viewers to question the morality of capital punishment. Thunderstorm #5. Light and darkness, visual allegories of good and evil. Throughout the film, light and darkness play a vital symbolic role. John Coffey's healing is often accompanied by light, subtle, warm, and glowing. Dark corridors, shadowy cells, and dim lights reflect the emotional despair and isolation of death row. The final scenes, especially during Coffey's execution, contrast the brightness of the moment with the dark emotional weight, symbolizing the loss of a light in the world. This interplay of illumination and shadow visually underscores the film's exploration of good versus evil, divine grace versus human cruelty, and hope versus hopelessness. 6. Paul Edgecombe's guilt and longevity, the burden of knowledge. After Coffey heals Paul, granting him a miraculously extended lifespan, Paul begins to see his own long life as a punishment. He killed 2 little girls. That's what they said. But we didn't try hard enough to find out the truth. Now I walk the Green Mile every day. Paul's unnatural longevity becomes a metaphor for survivors' guilt, eternal memory, and the inescapable burden of witnessing a miracle and injustice simultaneously. Mr. Jingle's continued life mirrors Paul's, both outliving their natural time as eternal carriers of pain, truth, and remorse. 7. Disease as a metaphor for inner corruption and healing as grace. Coffey's ability to suck out disease and evil from others is a spiritual metaphor. Paul's urinary infection, once healed, represents more than just physical relief. It signals inner rebirth and renewed faith. When Coffey draws evil out of Percy, it's a symbolic attempt to cleanse cruelty, though Percy's internal corruption is too deep to be permanently healed. This exchange of spiritual energy, through breath, touch, and pain, elevates the act of healing to a sacred, sacrificial gesture, further reinforcing Coffey's divine metaphor. Dove #8. Birds, rain, and nature, freedom and spiritual cleansing. The film occasionally uses natural imagery as metaphor. Rainstorms accompany moments of tension and emotional climax, a visual metaphor for spiritual cleansing and chaos. The outside world, glimpsed rarely by prisoners, symbolizes freedom and the unreachable beauty of life. The bird Paul watches in the final scene represents release, peace, and the spiritual journey beyond life. Nature is often framed as distant but sacred, reinforcing the prison's role as a metaphor for the spiritual confinement of guilt and sorrow. Whitehever checkmark final verdict. The Green Mile is rich with visual, narrative, and thematic symbolism, each layer enhancing its exploration of divinity, mortality, justice, and redemption. Far from being a conventional drama, the film uses metaphors and spiritual allegory to elevate its story into the realm of modern myth. Gold military medal # from the divine sorrow of John Coffey to the eternal march of the Green Mile. Every symbol in the film invites the viewer not just to feel, but to think, reflect, and question the deepest truths about humanity and grace. Would you like a symbolism breakdown in table format or in script form for your Facts and Review YouTube channel? I can also add Urdu-English mixed narration to help you connect more effectively with your audience. The Green Mile, 1999. Franchise or historical context. Directed by Frank Darabont. Based on the novel by Stephen King, 1996. Genre: supernatural drama, historical fiction, prison narrative. Books franchise context: a standalone within Stephen King's cinematic universe. While The Green Mile is not part of a traditional cinematic franchise with sequels or prequels, it does hold a notable place within the larger world of Stephen King adaptations and shares thematic and narrative DNA with other King-inspired films. Key points: not a sequel or part of a serialized film series, but it does exist in the Stephen King multiverse, which includes films like The Shawshank Redemption, also directed by Frank Darabont, Carrie, It, Dr. Sleep, and more.